Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast.
Nah, man, we done worrying about territory, man. What corner we got, what project. Game ain't about that no more. It's about product. Yeah. We got the best goddamn product, so we gonna sell no matter where we are, right?
That voice, that is the British actor Idris Elba as Stringer Bell. Breakout role in The Wire, a small-time drug dealer with business school ambitions. Idris Elba has had a string of honors for his acting, including most recently an Emmy nomination for the Apple TV hit series Hijack. He's been recognized for his role in any number of characters. The title character in the thriller Luther.
Why does he make an announcement? Why does he make an announcement right now? Tell you why? Because something's coming. And whatever it is, he needs an audience. That's the kind of personality he is. He needs an audience.
And in the American version of The Office.
I am aware of the effect I have on women.
Well, if that doesn't show his range, he is also an internationally successful electronic music artist and DJ. And now Idris Elba is an executive producer of a documentary series for CBC Gem. It's called Paid in Full, The Battle for Black Music. Here is our conversation with Idris Elba. Idris Elba, good morning.
Good morning, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Tell me a little bit about how this ends up on your desk, this project that looks at how the music industry has ripped off black artists over time.
You know, it was actually a grouping of producers that brought this to me. I was fascinated by the idea of, exploring this territory. And as a producer, someone that sort of works in the music industry as well, it just really piques my interest. So my team, my company, and our co-producers sort of worked at it.
There's been a long history of musicians being ripped off by the music industry and by labels and others in the industry. How is that different for black artists? How has it been worse for black artists over time?
I mean, I guess, the series sort of explores the sort of machinations of how, musicians get exploited. And, there are so many musicians that works, prolific works that just haven't been accounted for, in the publishing, in the, playing rights and such. And it's one of these areas that the deeper you dive, the more you sort of paints a sort of dark picture of exploitation. And I think that's what, the show sort of really leans into. It's worse for black artists because there's so much music that's been unaccounted for. There's so many origins of music that come from black musicians, and those origins have never, for the most part, haven't been sort of recognized. And that's why, in the focus of this documentary, it's worse.
There are shocking stories in this that I think, to your point, people may not be aware of. Stories of people like Nina Simone, one of the greatest singers of all time.
I put a spell on you because you're mine.
I mean, being outspoken in many ways cost her. She talks about how there are records that she has that have never been released. People like Billie Holiday and Bessie Smith and Chuck Berry. I mean, when you take a look at those stories from history, is there one or two that stand out in terms of artists that should have been well taken care of that weren't?
Well, yeah, Nina Simone, fascinating story. For sure, Nina's story is a tragic one.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you anyhow. And I don't care if you don't want me. I'm yours right now.
Otis Redding is surprising also, considering the impact his music has had.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes.
What happened specifically with Otis Redding? For people who don't know, they Sitting on the Dock of the Bay and a couple of other tunes. But for people who don't know the story of him, what happened?
Otis Redding, everyone knows him, knows his music. He died young, and post his death, his wife had to really, really struggle to get his music paid for, and the exploitation of it, she had to be very protective of it. Otis Redding's estate had to really fight for his music after his death.
I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for. It look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay.
Again, it's one of countless stories of this, you know, what's been happening with a lot of black music.
Wasting time.
It's not just music from 50s and 60s that this happened to. You take a look at someone like Prince.
I never meant to cause you any sorrow.
Who famously changed his name to a symbol and wrote slave on his face.
I never meant to cause you any pain.
What should we learn from the story of Prince?
Well, I think, you know, when we understand, you know, what Prince went through, you sort of really delve into how labels actually work. And, you know, what we learn is that, you know, you sign your music to a label, which for the most part is usually meant to be a business partnership that works in both ways, right? The talent comes along, and the label helps amplify that talent's music around the world.
Purple rain, purple rain.
But what you're finding is that there are these incredibly restrictive contracts that, you know, basically tie the artist up, and it's more of a business contract than it is a celebration of the music. And, you know, Prince has albums upon albums of unreleased music because of those restrictions. And I think you'll find, as you said, Nina Simone has unreleased music, and this is one of the restrictions that you find happening with some of these really archaic contracts that, you know, these days artists are more independent, and they've understood that, where, you know, the label's positioning all still being important, but the business relationship between the artists and the labels need to be a lot more fair.
It's interesting because the series also looks at some of the black industry moguls, people who ostensibly would have the good interests of their artists at heart. Berry Gordy comes in and creates Motown, but perhaps it doesn't all work out for the artists even when he's there, when a black man is helping to run that label. You have Master P, you have Jay-Z who helps create Rockefeller. What should we learn from their experiences, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think, you know, the music industry has these incredibly, you know, restrictive ways of working that, you know, are essentially law. You know, it's all contracted. These are legal documents that bind these artists into these situations. And you've seen that exploitation in various types, whether it's black, white, but the music industry has those, you know, those plentiful stories.
How much has changed now, do you think?
I think that the artist is in control a lot. You know, digitization of music has made it so that everyone has a way of putting their music out independently. You know, if your music is what people want to hear, people will find it. Where, you know, back in the day, the labels were the ones that could distribute music. But these days, you know, you can distribute your entire album from your phone. So, you know, the power is now lifted away from just having the label, but is, you know, in the hands of the artists. And I think that's the main significant change, is that the artist is in control a lot more now.
The series highlights someone like Chance the Rapper, who never signed to a major record label and still was able to become incredibly successful just by kind of running things on his own.
Yeah, there's, you know, a real connection between the fan base and the artist. You know, the artists are now connecting directly to their fans, and those fans actually have a slightly more, you know, better relationship with their artist. They feel a sense of ownership where they can go directly to the artist and buy their music and get their music.
The issue of reparations is something that people have talked about across society for a long time. But this comes up as well in this series, looking at reparations for those artists who were exploited or ripped off in past. What do you make of that? How would something like that work, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know how it would work exactly. And it's definitely a subject that has, far-reaching implications. It's a subject that people are sensitive about broaching. But I suspect that, if we're going to move forward and musicianship can be sort of respected, one has to look at history. You have to look at the past. If it means, the foundation of the house that you live in isn't working, isn't laid down right, you fix the foundation before you keep building, right? And so I think with reparations, I think that's, something to be considered because, this music is still out there. It still has value. People are still discovering it. And so therefore, the ownership of that music still lives with the artist, right?
And so if the belief is that black music is the foundation of so much modern music now, the people who helped create that music, or at the very least their descendants, their families, should be compensated if they weren't when they were alive.
I think that, when you look at it like that, you have to sort of really examine how that works, okay? And, I want to be like sort of the expert on how reparations should work or, have an opinion on it because I'm really not qualified. But I will say that, music for an artist and their family is their generational wealth, right? Their catalog is their generational wealth. And that should be, put in the hands of those that deserve it, those that own it, those that made that music, That's what I think.
Mm. In addition to helping produce this, I mean, you're also, as I said, a musician yourself. You recently signed a record deal. How difficult is it for you to navigate that industry and make sure that you get what you're due, make sure that you're paid in full?
I think it's important to understand that, I'm an independent. I sign individual records to different labels. I have a label myself. And like I said, I think the mechanism of, digitization now allows artists to be safeguarded, be in control. I can't do what a label can do for my record. So it's great to have that, opportunity to distribute it with someone. But for me, it's about having that control. It's about having that equal partnership with whoever I decide to put my music out with. It's the same with me and my label. If I have an artist, it's a partnership.
What does music mean in terms of, you're a busy guy, you have a lot going on in all of the different fields that you're working in. Tell me what music means in your life right now.
It's expression. It's my canvas to express myself differently. I get paid to play characters. And music, it makes me. It's a form of my art, I guess. It's a way to be artistic outside of what I do, as an actor. I've always done music, even before acting. I just love the opportunity to sort of, I'm in San Diego now. I DJ'd last night. It's great to sort of play my music to a bunch of people that know it. It's a real satisfying part of my art.
People may have seen the clips of you DJing Coachella and elsewhere, and you're in a huge club or in a big space, and you're playing house music at volume, and the crowd is into it. What is that like to be up on that podium?
It's spiritual. It's a spiritual feeling, It's like, when you think about how there are so many ways human beings can be divided, but when you play one song that has everyone feeling the same at the same time, that's spiritual, and it's gorgeous. You know, it's one of the best feelings that you could ever have. You know, when I put a film out, and you go and people watch it, or a TV show, you know, that feeling isn't the same. It's not in real time, but when you're DJing, you know, that is a spiritual connection.
I mean, you talked about the era that we're in terms of streaming. Do you find that as you get older, you're still discovering new music? One of the things that can happen is that the music that we grew up in often ends up being the music that we love, and it feels like you can't discover anything new. Are you finding that you can find new music all the time?
It's challenging for, you know, it's a real effort for anyone to find new music. There's tons of ways to do it, but you really do have to sort of lean into that. You know, back in the day, music was sort of controlled via the radio, and that's how you'd get the music, and then you'd go out and buy that music as a record or a tape cassette or whatever. But now there are just so many ways to get and receive music. So, and of course, you know, there are so many more musicians because making music is democratized. You know, back in the day when studios were the only way you can make a song, you know, put it on the radio. Now you can do that literally off your phone. So, you know, definitely, I think for me, what's encouraging about that is that talent will rise. You know, if everyone can make music, if everyone can distribute music, and you have a hit song, that's real talent, because it's very difficult to gain everyone's attention when they've got so much choice, you know?
What's the last thing that you've heard that kind of got the hair on your arm standing up? You know that feeling when you put something on and it's incredible and you can't quite believe what you're listening to.
I actually was working in Nigeria, working with an artist called Constance. She's a young artist, about 19 years old, and she's an actress as well. Constance's music, her voice is just like amazing. She's new. You can find some of her work, but she is like incredible, just pure talent.
Give me the love we could change you. If God no create a boy like you, telling me where I for day. That is why I need you. Myself from you,
It must be really interesting. People know you for one thing, and you have this other life that is equally satisfying.
Don't we all? I think you've probably got some skills up your sleeve that not many people know from your work on the radio. But yeah, I love having, you know, different strings to my bow. You know, I do enjoy that. Life is for living fully, you know.
Life is for living. This is a really great series. I mean, it's eye-opening, and hopefully will get people to think about the industry that they're in. But it's also just great to talk to you about music and as that idea of it being a spiritual thing. Being in a club can be a spiritual place.
100%. Yeah. You know, we've all had that feeling when you see an artist, you know, break out into song, just a acoustic guitar, a live mic, and, you know, make their hairs on your neck stand up. That is your spirit reacting. And then when everyone's feeling that at the same time, it's really beautiful. So that's why it's really important, like, you know, when we put business to that sort of talent, which is, you know, spiritual feeling is for everyone. But when you put business to it, you know, make that fair. You know, I know it's about making money, but make it fair so everyone can benefit from it.
You have more music coming? The La Trompetta tune is a big tune. There's more coming?
Oh, La Trompetta, yeah. My newest one is called Sima Agua. It's this really beautiful artist called Myra Andrade. She's from Cape Verde. It's a beautiful song. Have a listen to it.
Will do. Idris Elba, it's really great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. Much love. Bye-bye.
I'm glad I had the disco ball installed here in Studio 322. Idris Elba and Myra Andrade and their new single, Sima Agua. Idris Elba is the executive producer of a 3-part docu-series we were talking about earlier. It's called Paid in Full, The Battle for Black Music, and you can watch it now on CBC Gem.